Thank you, Simeon. I've actually known Simeon since he was a little boy, and if he wants internet trolling, then I've got photographs of him as a teenager that will soon be making their way to Twitter. Uh, Thank you for coming. For those of you not from Tottenham, welcome. And for those of you who are from Tottenham, look at that. I'm asking for that. I'm taking that home, by the way, if anyone's wanting to know. It is great to have a TEDxTottenham. I don't know if you've ever decided to Google Tottenham in Google and see what comes up in the images. So you kind of get riots and police and fire. And some of you were like, not really bothered about getting free lunch. Am I going to get a free fire extinguisher if I've got to come to Tottenham? But it's really sad because I've lived in Tottenham since I was 4 years old, so about 17 years. Thanks, guys. And I moved here when my mum and dad split up, and I moved in here with my dad. So my dad was a single parent, a bit like Ian Bill from EastEnders. There was really no one else after that, really. And he was a bit of an activist, and he was quite political. So everyone else kind of went Legoland and stuff, and I went to meetings and protests. And so it was like a bit of a loony left model of childcare. So I'd go there with my glittered stop the cuts kind of placard. I know it's sweet, isn't it? Social workers didn't think so. We used to go quite often to these protests. And I remember when I was about 12, so I was in my Nina Cherry phase with my big square earrings, and we were on the train down to Hyde Park to go for a protest, and my dad was like, we've got to have that talk. And I thought, I don't even want to have this talk right now, not on the train. I thought it was going to be that talk. We never had that talk, by the way. He kind of said that I'm looking a bit older. You could see where I thought this was going. And he said, we need an arrest plan. So what we're going to do is if we get arrested, you're like the westernized teenage Indian girl, and I'm the typical Indian dad, and you're really meant to be at your chapati making classes. But you went off with your westernized friends, and I came and got you, and I got arrested, and and I'm sitting there on the tube thinking, this is so embarrassing. I'm listening to Mark Morrison, I'm really trying to look cool, and it really wasn't happening. So anyway, but nothing happened. On that session, we came home and we didn't get arrested. But the last protest I went with him was in 1993. It was just before he died. I was 14. Okay, I lied about my age before. I'll let you figure it out now. And we had to go to a place called Tower Hamlets, which was just a 67 bus ride away from where I lived in Tottenham. And usually my dad would kind of brief me that we're going to go and stop cuts, or the poll tax, or something that the Tories were doing at the time. But this one was because there was going to be a British National Party candidate. So for those of you who don't know who the BNP are, you're lucky. But they're a far-right extremist group. And they were going to put a candidate and it looked like it was going to be the first ever BNP candidate to be elected in this country in Tower Hamlets. And he was saying to me that we have to go down there and protest because they don't like brown or black people. And I'm sitting there like, what? I don't understand that. That doesn't make sense to me. I can understand we're going to save a library or we're going to stop the poll tax, but actually normal people just not liking other normal people. I had no concept of this, so I just put my headphones back in and thought, my dad has finally lost it. I'm going to call social services myself when I get back in. And we went. So we get off the 67 bus at Aldgate, and we're there. And we kind of turn a few corners, and next thing I know it, I see fascists, really skinhead with tattoos on their faces, and they're chucking bottles, and there's fire, and there's smashed windows. And I actually froze. I just thought, oh, wow. And it was so scary. I don't know how we ended up in the back of the police van, 2 separate police vans. But actually, for the first time ever, and being from Tottenham, being in the back of a police van isn't a great thing, but it felt like a better thing than being out in this environment at the time. But I just went kind of with the flow. We got released about 2.5 hours later, And I realised what was going on when the police officer said, "You need to get back to your chapati making classes." I thought, my dad snitched on me. I can't believe it. And not even snitched, like she framed me and made a story. So there he is getting patted on the back, Father of the Year, and I'm there like, no. Anyway, we went back on this 67 bus, and I was quite taken aback by what I'd seen. I'd never seen, even though I'd been here for the Broadwater Farm riots, I'd only seen like 1 or 2 pictures in the newspaper and a few helicopters. It was 1985. We didn't have camera phones or 24-hour TV or anything like that. So to kind of come face to face with this, I thought, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And it was really, really like, there's my dad trying to bribe me with Wimpy to get me to speak to him and stuff. I'm really sorry I snitched and all that stuff. But I was really in deep thought. And we turned, for those of you who know this 67 bus route, we came down and we were just about to turn down St Anne's Road, and there was a brilliant sign that says, "Welcome to Haringey." And I looked around and I looked out the bus window and I saw Jewish people and I saw African people and I saw Asian people, and they were all dressed in their clothes and their cultural dress, and nobody was looking at anybody differently. Everybody seemed to be getting along really well. And I thought, I'm home, I'm back in Tottenham. So from that moment, I realised that, and I told my dad, whatever happens, I never, ever, ever want to leave Tottenham. I just felt like this is the place that I felt safe in. So in 2011, when we had the riots, I was quite devastated by that. And this time we did have kind of Twitter and Facebook, and we had all the pictures. There's thousands and thousands of video images, and it's kind of replaying. And it was on, I don't know how many of you were kind of watching it, but it was on 24 hours for ages and ages and ages. And it kind of was quite impactful, but it wasn't happening somewhere where I didn't recognize. I watched it and I was like, I go to that shop and oh no, I really like the guy that works there. And it kind of felt like something was really kind of happening to you, even though I lived a safe distance away from the smoke. It really devastated me. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to share it with you and 2 million other people on YouTube. But I still, if I hear helicopters, in the summer months in Tottenham, you do kind of get a little bit anxious. So there is still that feeling there of, oh God, please don't let this ever happen again. What really disturbed me about it was that people were going around on the news, people from out Tottenham, people from in Tottenham, and they had nothing really good to say about Tottenham. And I'm standing there screaming at the TV going, what about this? And I seemed to be the only one, it felt sometimes the only one that actually wanted to stay here. And I couldn't put it in words. I couldn't put it of why I wanted to stay. I couldn't just say because everybody was allowed to wear whatever clothes they wanted. It's not a fashion show. You can, what was it? I don't understand. And so I decided that if I am going to speak, that I've got to do the place justice. So I'm going to do some research about it. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. So I've just got back from Paris, as the lovely Simeon, you're going to check his photographs on my Twitter later this evening, just told you. And when we're thinking beyond, I'm in the middle of Paris and I see a post office and I'm still thinking about Tottenham, because that little stamp that everybody uses across the world, that little piece of paper that everybody uses to communicate with, was actually made in 1860 by a man who lived in Tottenham called Rowland Hill. That is how amazing Tottenham is. When I think about some of the other things that remind me of Tottenham, when we look at the Education Act of 1870, and we realise that it was only then, in 1870, that education for people up to the age of 12 was now legal for every child. Before that, you have to either have money or somebody with money thought that they could open up a school and help some poor children, and even then they were only up to 6 or 7. So the law had changed in 1870 to make sure that everybody in this country, rich or poor, was allowed to get an education. William Foster came from Tottenham. And we can carry on with all of these amazing things that were happening in Tottenham. We've got our own popcorn, we've got our own cream soda, we've got our own beer, we've even got our own cheese that I understand is going to be eaten by the Queen for the first time in her garden party next week. So we've got some fantastic things going on. We've got the Adeles and we've got the Wretch 32s. We've even got the amazing Simeon Brown, who's a fantastic Channel 4 presenter. So what is it that is so bad about Tottenham with all of these things that are happening? We've had the first black MP ever in this country from Tottenham, elected in Tottenham. This is an amazing place to be, but how come nobody knew about it? I just don't understand everything I'm telling you, and still it's a place that everybody wants to get out of. What really disturbed me about it was the young people. And so I'm a youth worker by background. I've been doing youth work. I've got to stick to my real age this time, innit? So I've been doing it for about 17 years. And to speak to young people and ask them for the first time ever, what do they think about Tottenham, or kind of the borough of Haringey where Tottenham is in? And they just said, hate it here, can't wait to get out of here, because I live here, then things are not going to go well for me. They already had a preconception about how their life was going to be because of where they lived. And it wasn't even based on the truth. It was based on this fabrication that Tottenham was such an awful place where failure came from. And I couldn't understand it. So we opened up a lot of newspapers, and all you saw was this young person and mugged that person, and this young person had been done for robbery. And they weren't even saying young person, I'm kind of toning it down. It was thug, it was scum. Even our Prime Minister was calling them feral youth. There was no kind of real compassion that these were children who were going down the wrong path, and how do you bring them back? So we were constantly psychologically brainwashing our young people to let them know that the only famous thing that you can do if you come from Tottenham is to be a criminal. That's the only thing that's ever going to come from if you're here, if you want to be famous. So that's what we were pushing to our children. So we started up a campaign called Positive Youth News Haringey. Obviously, if we thought about it, we would have actually kind of done a shorter name that would have been able to fit on Twitter. But it was only meant to be for 6 to 8 weeks. And what we wanted to do is we sat down with the two kind of newspapers in Haringey, in Tottenham, the Tottenham Journal and now the Tottenham Independent. It was formerly the Haringey Independent. And we kind of just said, for every one bad news story that you write about a young person, can you just find a good one? Even if it is like, you know, little Sally kind of sold like £10 worth of cupcakes. Like, just do it, please. And so, yeah, they got a bit annoyed with me because apparently I'm a troll. I'm not forgiving him for that. And so what we got a network of young people to go out and tell us some stories about their friends. And actually, the stories were amazing. We had young people that were living in Tottenham, that were in Cambridge University, that had started up their own clothing business. A 12-year-old that had his own comic business and was about to get a contract from Beano, the youngest ever illustrator, to work on Beano in their 75-year history. These weren't small stories. The cupcakes would have been lovely, but these were just mind-blowing. We had never seen anything like this. And what was happening was everybody wants to read it. So the newspapers were now suddenly getting interested that actually good news does sell. And so they were kind of starting to top each other and starting to put out more stories. So this 6-week program has now lasted 3 years. But we wanted to do more. We wanted to reward young people. So we sent them, our MP allowed us to have a room in Parliament for a day, and we had a massive kind of certificate event. And we had to buy all the food from the pound shop and possibly steal cups from a youth centre. Like, it wasn't, we had no money, but we were still doing it. And so we've done all of these great things. We took a group to City Hall, and we had a big award ceremony there, and where people can kind of show off all the young people, their music talents, and kind of a bit like a TEDx, but without that. And again, with food from pound shop. Sorry, but if it weren't for the pound shop, no one would get fed. You're getting the gist. So I guess I'm coming to the end of my talk. And the reason that I wanted to tell you the journey that I had been on was because when I heard your coming over to me and asking me to talk, and the theme was think beyond, I kind of thought you can't really think beyond if you don't know where you're at. And if you're only kind of if you can't even think beyond, if you're not even thinking for yourself, and if you're going to go on based on what the media tell you or what it is that there's a reputation, if you don't kind of scratch beneath that kind of surface, I think that might have been the hashtag for last year. If you don't kind of really think and learn for yourself what the truth is, then you can't think beyond. I want to be here in TEDx 2020, listening to the next generation of people and how amazing they were, because we cannot have a catalogue of history and then it kind of stops in the 21st century because suddenly we've got someone from outside telling us that this place is bad. So if I can leave you with one thing, is that it's think for yourself. Thank you very much.